the Breakfast Club with Charlemagne the God, Dyson points out that Michelle flat out lies about not knowing who I was or not knowing that side of me because he had been a member of Trinity Church since the 1970s, not the 80s when they joined. And Dyson said, Jeremiah had been preaching the same way for 36 years. So to say she didn't know I preached like that was a flat-out Obama lie. Can I get an amen? Rescue me if I'm wrong. Holler if you hear me. The point is, however, for the past 11 years, everybody knew me when I was Obama's pastor. Their perception of me clouded their ability to hear the gospel I was preaching Sunday after Sunday. I never will forget what my dad said to me. We used to be on the white station in the mornings, and when the white station took over from black folk, I think they bought it from Cody, John, Dick, Dan, and the King family. Remember the King family? Yeah, Crawford. You knew them well from another painful moment in your life. But those great white Christians are as racist as Trump. And when they bought the station, my father said to me, you know them white folk ain't gonna play your sermons no more, don't you? I said, yes, sir, I know that. He said, but don't you stop preaching what you've been preaching, because it ain't nothing but the truth. Point is, however, for the past 11 years, everybody knew me when I was Obama's pastor. Their perception of me clouded their ability to hear the gospel I was preaching Sunday after Sunday. The church folk in Nazareth had a perception of Jesus that was formed by his biological father. They knew him as the son of the carpenter. They did not know Jesus of Nazareth and his relationship with his theological father. They knew him as the son of Joseph. Jesus, however, was the Son of God. Jesus was the Christ, Son of the living God. There's a big difference between the two. If you go back to the first chapter of Matthew, you will see where Matthew says that Joseph did not have sexual intercourse with his wife until after Jesus was born. That miraculous event, however, took place down in Bethlehem. The folk in Nazareth only knew the Nazareth narrative. They did not know the rare Bethlehem blessing. As a result, their perception discolored their reception. They could not hear or receive the message because of their perception of the messenger. That is the first lesson that the text teaches. When I looked at that first chapter of Matthew, Laverne, that's my sister, y'all. I thought back to a Sunday. I remember I got in trouble. I don't know if Laverne got in trouble too. I think she, don't shake your head, Megan. I think she was laughing right along with me. Pastor Buck, one of those carpetbaggers, street, turn your collar around. Preachers came in, saw a sign in the sky that said GP, thought it meant go preach, when it meant go plow. He came in to help my father. Came in the pastor's study and handed in his card, gave his name. I'll make a name up in case somebody here knows him. He said, I'm Elder Walker of Church of God in Christ. I'm here to assist you any way you see fit. Daddy said, you can read the scripture. What is your scripture, Pastor? He said, Matthew, the first chapter, first 17 verses. It was Advent. Daddy was preaching on the lineage of Christ. And after pointing out that long lineage that Matthew outlines with all those begats, in the first chapter of Matthew, Daddy's sermon point was, we are not of that lineage, but we are heirs and joint heirs with Christ. Came time for the scripture, the Reverend stood up, he said, God bless you, I'm Elder Walker from blankety blank, Church of God in Christ. I'm here to assist your pastor. Your pastor has asked that I read in your hearing the first 17 verses of the first chapter of the Gospel according to St. Matthew. But the Holy Spirit tells me to read the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd. They could not hear the message because of the perception of the messenger. The second lesson this text teaches me can be summarized with these two words, past and present. Say past and present. When you are looking at the past, and the past is all you are looking at, you can miss the present and what God is doing in the present. Your fixations on what an individual did in the past cause you to mix what the Almighty is doing in the present. What Jesus is doing in the present is excellently awesome. I gave you a short list of this wonderful man called Jesus. I gave you a quick summary about the wonderful things that Jesus was known all over Galilee and Judea for doing. When Jesus' enemies sent temple guards to arrest him, his enemies were stunned at how profound his teaching was. His own enemies complimented him. His enemies came back to the temple. Let me say that a different way. The guards who were hired by church folk to go arrest Jesus came back to the church saying, never a man spake like this man. Jesus could speak and a leper's spots would be cleansed. Jesus could speak and the blind received their sight. Jesus could speak Ephphatha and the dumb would receive the gift of speech. The deaf could hear the sound of his voice. Jesus spoke and the widow of Nain's dead son came back to life. Jesus spoke and Jairus' daughter was brought back from the dead. Jesus spoke and Lazarus came forth from a 4-day tomb. Jesus spoke and stilled an angry ocean, calmed a raging sea, quieted hurricane winds, and drove away angry clouds. Jesus could speak and the birds would hush their singing. Jesus spoke and a Roman soldier got saved at the cross. Never a man spoke like this man. Jesus could spit on the ground, take the saliva and dirt, make a muddy paste, put it on a man's eyes, send him to the pool of Siloam, have the man come back seeing. When his creds were challenged by his enemies, the blind man said, I don't know whether this man is a sinner or not, but this one thing I do know, whereas I was blind, now I can see. Those were just some of the things that Jesus was doing in the present. Now let me try to put it a different way. Those are just some of the things that God was doing through Jesus in the present. But because the church folk in Nazareth were stuck in the past, because they knew him when, they completely missed what God was doing through him in the present. They even called the miracles in the passage. Since I left Philadelphia, I not only served 6 years in the military, I also spent 3.5 years at Virginia Union University. I then transferred to Howard University and earned my bachelor's and master's, my first master's degree. It was in the bio that I'm reading my wife's hand right now. It was in the bio that my wife's hand got in the way. Pastor Buck put the bio in your bulletins. I then spent 6 years at the University of Chicago, Divinity School, came away from USC with a Master of Arts in the History of Religions. I completed my doctoral studies under Dr. Samuel DeWitt Proctor, the man who was president of Virginia Union. When I entered there in January of '59, I was called the pastor of Trinity United Church of Christ in March of 1972, and we had a whopping total of 87 members when I started the pastorate. When I retired 36 years later, we had 8,000 active members, 6,000 of whom were tithing members. Our church budget when I started at Trinity was $34,000 a year, Pastor Buck, $34,000 a year. When I retired, our total budget for the year was $11 million each year. Under my pastorate, I built 2 worship centers. The first one cost $1.5 million in 1979. The second one cost $16 million, and the dedication sermon was preached by Dr. Samuel DeWitt Proctor. By then, he was pastor emeritus of the Abyssinian Baptist Church in New York. God used me to build 2 senior citizen facilities, one with 40 apartments for 40 families, the other with 60 apartments for 60 families. God used me to start a daycare center that is now housed in 3 different sites. God used me to start a hospice ministry, a higher education ministry, and an African-centered elementary school. Across the years, I've seen my classmates excel in every field imaginable. And I've also seen classmates of mine cross over the bar and into the land with their bright mansions. Jesus said, in my Father's house, there are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. And for every childhood friend that God has taken away from me, God has raised up some new friends. 2 of our new friends on the West Coast gave Rayma and me a 65th birthday gift when I turned 65. It was a gift unparalleled by any other gift. Listen carefully, Jennifer. They did not give it to the First Lady, they gave it to me. It was the year before I retired. When I retired, I had 9 honorary doctorates conferred upon me, and 1 honorary doctorate withdrawn from me because of the Obama debacle stirred up by the media. You ever heard someone being awarded a doctorate and the school take it away before you get it? Because they didn't want the press there. Our new friends, however, gave us a free trip to Lanai. Lanai is the smallest island for tourists in the Hawaiian Islands. It's just about 5 miles equidistant between Maui and Molokai. They not only flew us to Lanai first class, they also put us up at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel on Lanai. You ought to have seen us. Ever since my 65th birthday, I've been telling people that they are mispronouncing the word R-I-T-Z, Ritz. When they say Ritz-Carlton, it really should be called and pronounced the Rich Carlton. You need big bucks to stay there any length of time. On the day of my 65th birthday, while swimming in the Olympic-sized pool, an African-American woman got in the pool with me. We were the only 2 persons using that facility at the time. She asked me what kind of work I did. I was imagining she wanted to know how I could afford to be on that isolated island at this high-end hotel. I told her I was a pastor, heading into our last year of the pastorate in Chicago. I then asked her what kind of work she did. She told me she was a clinical psychologist, and I asked where. She said in Philadelphia. Just hearing the word Philadelphia perked up my ears, put up my antenna. Immediately I thought of cheesesteaks, hoagies, tasty cake pies, and butterscotch crimpets. I asked her, was she a member of ABPSI? ABPSI is the Association of Black Psychologists. She said, of course. We then talked a few minutes about Baba Asa Hilliard, Dr. Wade Nobles, Dr. Naeem Akbar, and my classmate, Dr. Anderson J. Franklin. She kept looking at me strangely, and I was wondering why. She finally asked me, didn't you speak for ABPSI a few years back? I said, yes, I had. And then she started saying my name softly to herself, Jeremiah Wright, Jeremiah Wright, Jeremiah Wright. She said, didn't you grow up in Philadelphia? I said, yes. She said, didn't you pastor a church in Philadelphia? I said, no. That would be my father. She then screamed at the top of her lungs, calling her husband, who was about as far as the front door from where I'm sitting, about 30 yards away. He was lying on a chaise lounge. And she said, as she called out to him, once again at the top of her lungs, tourists of other persuasions sitting all around, baby, baby, I'm in the pool with Buddy Wright. still at a volume much too loud for my liking and making me uncomfortable. She said to me as her husband came to see what she was yelling about, "You went to school with my husband's cousin, Billy Jones. Didn't you all go to Central High School?" "Mm-hmm, yes, we did." "Didn't you steal a car when you were 15 years old?" "When you and Billy were juniors going into your senior year at Central High, you all got busted for stealing the car, didn't you?" In so many words, if you feel good about closing out your ministry, if you feel good about what God has done through you in your ministry, you can feel good all you want to, but we knew you win. Buddy Wright, the same buddy who stole the car with Billy, she said, with her tone only being about 4 decibels lower than it was when she first called out to her husband to come see who it was. "He went to school with Billy." You can get so stuck in the past or allow others to get you stuck in the past. Allow their comments, their remarks, allow reminders, allowing folk who want to keep you in the past. You can get so stuck back there that you can miss what God is doing right here. Not then, but now. Looking at the past, you can miss the present. Your fixation on what an individual did in the past can cause you to miss what the Almighty is doing in his or her present. That is the second lesson that this text teaches me. The church folk in Nazareth were so fixated on Jesus as being the carpenter's son, Mary's boy, and the sibling of James, Jerome, Simon, and Judas, that at least 3 women who were his sisters, they were so stuck on that. Matthew doesn't give their name. Please notice, Matthew doesn't call the women's name. He's fixated on something. Maybe it's called misogyny or patriarchy. He just says your sisters. So fixated on the past that they miss what the Almighty is doing in the present. In fact, they called his deeds miracles. Yet instead of focusing on the miracles, they were fixated on the mess. Somebody need to explain that birth in Bethlehem to me so I can understand it. The first lesson the text teaches is perception prevention. Say that again. Perception prevention. The second lesson is fixated on the past and not focusing on the present. Say not focusing on the present. The third and final lesson this text teaches leaps out at me from verse 58. Church folk who can't hear the message because of their perception of the messenger. Church folk who are fixated on the past and missing the spotlight that God is putting on the present. They are ultimately folk who end up blocking their own blessings. Say, blocking my own blessings. Say it again. You block your own blessings when you confuse the message with the messenger. When you can't hear the message because you're hating on the messenger. You block your own blessings. When you can't see what God is doing in the present because all you're talking about, thinking about, and looking at is what happened in the past, you block your own blessings. Look at verse 58. Verse 58 says that Jesus was not able to do many blessings because the church folk were blocking what he was trying to bless them with. Look at the verse. Jesus did not do many miracles there because of their lack of faith. The key word for me in this verse is not the word faith, but the word many, M-A-N-Y. Jesus did not do many miracles there in Nazareth because church folk had a lack of faith. Now I call many, M-A-N-Y, the key word in that verse, because when you drop the M from being the first letter of the verb of the word, you will see a very, very powerful truth. It does not say Jesus did not do any miracles there in Nazareth. It said he did not do what? Church folk with a lack of faith prevented him from doing more miracles than he was able to do. When Matthew says he did not do many miracles, Matthew is saying he did do some miracles because some of the church folk had faith. When you don't have faith in the message that the messenger is bringing, when you don't have faith because you knew the messenger when he or she was younger, when he or she made a mistake, when he or she was not fully open to what God can do, will do, would do, and could do in their lives, you block your own blessings. Just as the Lord blessed a few folk with faith in Nazareth, let me tell you something. Jesus wants to bless somebody with faith who's worshiping here on Pastor Buck's second anniversary. Somebody came to grace this morning because you're curious. You heard the stories about Buddy Wright or Jeremiah Wright, thanks to the media. You heard the gospel about Buddy, Billy Jones, Reggie McCoy, and other saints who've gone on to be with the Lord. And you were curious. You came to grace curious. But God wants to bless you with a brand new life starting today. God wants you to go home convicted, not curious. God wants somebody to go home converted, not curious. God has a blessing for you. God knows exactly what it is you need, and God is trying to give it to you. Don't block your blessings. Some came this Sunday to help celebrate 2 years of Pastor Buck's service, and you came with a positive attitude. God bless you. Somebody else, however, you just came with the attitude. You just came to see if the congregation is going to bless Pastor Buck like they blessed your interim pastor, Dr. Robinson. Yes, I said it. As one of my colleagues says, I wish I had said more so I'd have more I'm not going to take back. I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. I've been around church folk all my life. I've been around black folks 77 years. Some Robertson followers are here today so they can report back to Robertson what the congregation did. They had to take the door, they had to take the box out the door, leave it at the back door because people didn't get much. They got to report back what the two preachers preached about, what the size of the congregation was, how the barbecue cookout was canceled. Not knowing the bar, they tore down that building, had another how big the crowd was. What Buddy Wright said, yeah, you're here for and you came for all the wrong reasons. Let me tell you about the right reasons. Somebody came here because you needed a word from the Lord, and the Lord has a word for you today. Don't block your blessings. Somebody came here because you're at a low point in your finances and you don't see how you're going to make it through next week. There's a blessing in this house waiting for you. I asked Sister Sarah, you all know this is her 8th anniversary today, 9th or 7th. I'm trying to give you an extra year. Feels like it, doesn't it? Feel like 8, doesn't it? Like the Christian comedian says, I asked her to play something metacrational.